Hi, my name is Torrin Rosegold. I'm a student at the University of Oregon under Dr. Charles Dowd and Dr. Sean Wagner, where I perform regularly. I'm a sophomore in percussion performance and music education. As a treat of the Percussion Axiom television show, which I've been watching since last winter, I am going to be learning and performing for you, the viewers, Katamaia by Emmanuel Sojourner. The way I'm going to do this first informational session about what I do is I'm going to take the piece as a whole, and the way that my department trained me to do. The first thing that I like to do is I like to get a copy of the music, which is right here, and I like to get a recording. The recording I have is by Katarzyna Maika off the album Marimba Dance. This is a great album. It features many other tracks that I've used, including the Schmidt 6 miniatures, which I have also performed. The piece we are looking at here is Katamaia. What I like to do before I perform any marimba solo piece, or do any work at all on the marimba, is spend some time away from the marimba where I sit down with the music and I look at what I am dealing with. I pulled together the music, and as you can see, I have marked it up considerably. Yes, the music. Yes, lots of notes. What I like to do when I first sit down with the music, because this is something I'll do when I'm in class before I even have access to a marimba, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. I haven't touched a marimba with this piece yet, and I like to just sit down and look through it. The first thing that I notice about this piece is the tempo, the key, the dynamic range, all these things that determine a piece. For example, stick choice on this piece. After looking through this whole piece, first thing I notice is the dynamics go from pianissimo to mezzo forte. There isn't a single moment in this piece where it's at forte. Now, also this is a solo piece, so these are solo dynamics, so mezzo forte is the loudest and pianissimo is the quietest. With all this in consideration, I would choose a mallet that I think fits best. The mallets that I use a lot are the Zeltzman, the Nancy Zeltzman mallets. On this piece, I would probably use Nancy Zeltzman 2s if I had to guess. I haven't sat down with the piece, but this is what I like to do. So I write a little note to myself. Nancy Zeltzman 2s. Those are a light green mallet, and I use it on a lot of different pieces. It's a nice range. It can get some really solid dynamics. It plays well on the top of the instrument as well as the low end of the instrument. Some other things I noticed about this piece beyond stick choice, range of the piece. This piece only requires a 4 1/3. It does not require a full 5-octave instrument, which is good because I own a 4 1/3, not a 5. This also affects when I can practice, where I can practice. These are things I like to establish before I get down and dirty with the music. Now that I have the music in front of me, what I like to do is look through the piece and establish what's going on. So, as we can see, and as we have already covered in measures 1, I guess basically, yes, just measure 1 is a rolly section. There's no meter, unlike the rest of the piece. There are dynamics, there are phrase markings, but there's only one dynamic in the whole section. It's piano. Now I'm going to take this to understand that this is a solo piece. I'm going to be playing it for an audience. If I played the whole thing piano and only went up to mezzo piano the whole time, that would be really boring. So one thing I'm probably going to do is I'm going to take it piano, and that first crescendo I could go up to a mezzo forte and come back down. So these are little notes that I like to keep on the music because it's really a good idea of what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to keep this idea throughout the rolling section. Once I get down with the marimba, which I'll do later this week and record, I'll show you what I do with that. Continuing on with the idea of looking at this piece as a whole, measures 2 through 9 are the same kind of function. They set up the groove. The first thing I noticed about this section is, although it doesn't look like it, it's straight 16th notes. It's setting up the groove. The other thing I noticed is the left hand is louder than the right hand. The dynamics are piano and pianissimo, but actually playing those dynamics on the instrument would be barely audible. So I'm probably going to bump those up to almost a mezzo forte in the left hand and a piano on the right hand, which I will keep notes of on my music. It's very important to mark up your music with a pencil. The only way you will remember any of the things that I think about. Also, what I noticed is the melody in this first 2 through 9 is really in the left hand. The right hand has a constant whole step harmony. It doesn't change too much, and the bass line is really the melody here. Other things that I'm noticing in this first 2 through 9 are accents. I circle accents, so I notice them better. A lot of great players I know are good players that aren't great yet don't perform accents, the way that they should. I was listening to the recording a lot, and she really brings out the accents when she plays it, and I really like how that sounds. It helps create a really fluid sound, and I also think that the Zeltzman 2s will be great here. I think that's a perfect place for this kind of nice, fluid, soft and flowing, but the accents are coming out, so the mallets aren't too soft. That's really important. Don't use too soft a mallet on this piece. The next thing I noticed is that when we hit 10, the melody comes in the right hand, so everything changes. So the bass line is no longer as important, and mezzo forte begins getting used. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine that 2 through 9 are up to mezzo forte, and then when I get to 10, it's really almost a forte section, because this is the moment. And it's only in the right hand that it's forte. So I'm going to keep my left hand at the same volume and bring out my right hand, almost double it, until it goes down to pianissimo. And there are lots of hairpins and crescendos and decrescendos, but this section is where it really comes together as a piece. The other thing that I noticed about this whole section is this is all in A minor, the entire piece up until later in the piece. And that's just something to keep in mind. Key signature is very important. There are no flats or sharps, which makes this easy up until later, but it's still very important to check the key. Time signatures in 4/4. That's pretty clear. It's pretty simple. Moving along, it's really the similar kind of stuff up through 20. I'm looking at 23, and it continues. It rallentandos and decrescendos a little bit, which I circled and underlined so that I noticed that it is going to slow down and get quieter, which is very important to know when you're practicing, because even if I'm practicing at a very slow tempo, I like to practice where I practice everything I'm going to do with the final performance of my piece in my practicing. So I don't plug it in later, because it helps your muscle memory. The next thing I noticed is that at 26, it not only goes back to the original tempo, it changes key. It moves to E, which is actually the fifth of the A minor, so it's really sol, which is a pretty standard modulation, speaking from a theory standpoint. It also is at mezzo forte again, so it's a dramatic, different moment. So and it also has a different rhythm, so it's got tonal dissonance as well as rhythmic dissonance. You've got straight 16th notes, you've got very few triplets, and all of a sudden you have this pretty repeated every other bar, a big quarter note triplet happening. So that's a really important thing to bring out, mezzo forte again. So this is a very different section, and as I was listening to the recording, it comes out dramatically. It's not too loud, she's not hammering away at the bars, but the important thing is it gets quite a bit louder. This section has a groove to it. It's going to require some independent practicing beyond the other piece. There's one pattern that he kind of maintains throughout the piece in the hand motion, and then for 26 to 30, he changes that. So I'm going to have to spend some extra time looking at that. That section also has to be very clean, so I should practice that as a section. And then the next thing that I like to notice, and this is especially why I go through the music so intensively, repeat. It repeats all the way back to 10, the melody. If you're playing this and you don't notice that, and you play that for judges, they're going to notice this kind of thing. They're going to notice when you miss repeats, when you miss going back to the beginning, when you miss stuff like that. So it's important and easy to miss. If you memorize a marimba solo and you forget that there's a repeat, you look like a fool playing it in front of judges. So, circling the repeat. 26 back to 10. 10, we get back into the same thing. It's in the A minor. It gets back. We've got one pickup note. And then coming back through the piece again after 29, 30, 31. It goes back to the beginning. What I do is whenever this happens in a marimba solo, which happens all the time, in Rain Dance, in Astral Dance, which is the piece I just performed, there's a recapitulation. Recapitulation. I like to write that when it happens, because what that means is it needs to be a dramatic difference, and it needs to be different from the beginning in some fashion, right? It's the exact same dynamics, it's the exact same notes, there's a decrescendo, but something special has to happen here that says, we are coming to the end of the piece. This isn't the beginning all over again. We're not running a repeat again. This is the end. So that's really important, and I like to take note of these things before I even sit down at a marimba. I think this is really important. I do this in class all the time. When I have a solo that I'm going to be learning, but I'm sitting in class, I'll pull it out, I'll look through it, I'll pencil through it. This is something that my teachers really taught me to do, and I do it all the time with all my music. I'm reading a bunch of music this summer to learn, and this is the first piece, and I'm going to sit down with all of it and pencil through it before I do anything. I write all my notes on the music, I write everything, I write my mallets, I circle everything that's important. I write anything I need to think about. I talk to other people about it. I listen to the recording. I listen through it. I spend probably a half an hour with a piece before I even get to a marimba and think, oh, what are the notes? I look at the key. I look at the time signature. And I think this is a really important step to learning a marimba solo correctly. There are a lot of pieces that I've learned where I haven't sat down and done this, and it's hurt. In the end, I'll miss notes. I won't notice changes. I won't notice repeats. So this is me learning how to learn, and this is very important, and I think this is something that everyone should sit down and do. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to sitting down on a marimba and showing you all how I sound very shortly. Thank you very much. This was Torrin Rosegold with Percussion Axiom Television. Bye-bye.